614 Startups Nation, welcome to another episode of the 614 Startups Podcast. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and claim the title as the #1 startup podcast in Columbus, Ohio, and probably very soon the rest of the world. All right, that's the ambition here. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with the things that get me that have me excited this week and things that we're looking forward to into the future. We're going to do a little news. We're going to do a little social media look into, and then we're going to do a little bit about events that we have coming up that we might attend or that we're excited about. So let's go ahead and start with what's going on the 614 Startups website. All right, this week, very excited to drop this episode with my guy, Matt Orr of Stonehenge Capital. He breaks down the thinking behind Stonehenge Capital, the deals that they're looking to fund, the kind of startups and management teams that they're looking at. And he talks a little bit about private equity versus venture capital. So if you've ever kind of wondered what that difference is between private equity and venture capital, this is a great episode to check out. And also, I come on here and I remind you all the time, I know this is kind of hard to see maybe for you, but you can join our newsletter. All right, this is the fastest growing startup community here in Columbus, Ohio. Jump on the newsletter. This is how you stay aware of what's happening. So you'll get updates on new podcasts, blog episodes, and events. All right, now we're going to switch over to our news. All right, so some interesting things happening here in the city, including this announcement. Now, it's taken me a little bit of time to react to this, but this is something that I've been very excited about. So this dates back to February when Governor DeWine and Lieutenant Governor Husted announced the Columbus Innovation District. Now, when Cincinnati got their Innovation District, I was kind of disappointed. I thought it might be something that was just reserved for them. Kudos to them, of course, but I'm always advocating for Columbus, Ohio. So Cincinnati got an Innovation District, and then came Cleveland a couple months after, and then shortly after, our Innovation District was announced, which I'm very excited about. And this is a collaboration between Jobs Ohio, The Ohio State University, Nationwide Children's Hospital, Franklin County, City of Columbus. So this is a very collaborative effort, bringing together the funding necessary to create the Columbus Innovation District, which will be a hub for innovation and growth in Ohio, expanding science, technology, engineering, and math opportunities, and also creating a lot of jobs. Why does that matter? I am looking at two sectors that I think Columbus, Ohio can actually lead in. So we know we have a handle on insurance, right? So companies like Root and companies like Olive prove that insurance marketplace dominance, a lot of insurance talent here, a lot of people who are scaling up with these startups and then exiting those startups to go and lead other insurance companies, most notably Huckleberry, which I think is opening HQ2 here in Columbus, being led by a former CTO over at Root Insurance. But I think we have an opportunity and opening now with this Innovation District and a focus on two things: clean energy to power the future. Can Columbus become a hub of clean energy companies? So I hope part of the Innovation District, I know part of the Innovation District is a focus on powering cities, powering automobiles, and really establishing us as a potential leader in a new space around clean energy. And then also around health sciences when it comes to cancer treatment, right? We understand that is a huge market. It's a huge problem. A lot of people being impacted. And so advancing research in cancer treatment, can we stand up to new industries, attract talent, develop talent, attract startups, fund those startups, and help scale those? Very excited about us getting this Innovation District. All right, so we're going to flip over here and do a little bit of social media, actually. And I wanted to highlight my guy, Patrick Ahern. Patrick, welcome to the 614 Startups family, to the nation on LinkedIn. All right, now, why I wanted to highlight Patrick is because I wasn't even aware that we have a food system accelerator here in Columbus, Ohio. Interesting. Patrick, holla at your boy. I love the food space, particularly around organics, urban farming. How do we feed ourselves going into the future, and how do we do that sustainably, right? We know with issues around soil, Ohio is a big farm state. It only makes sense that we have a food system accelerator here. And so some interesting things about Food System 6, I think they started out on the West Coast, but they're expanding here. So holla at me, Patrick, and welcome to the family. I appreciate you trying to scale up food companies in a farm state like Ohio. So looking forward to hearing from my man, Patrick O'Hearn. If you are a food company out there, if you're producing anything, right, that's in the food space, I think this is something that should be on your radar. Food System 6 Accelerator. Reach out to them, see how they can help you scale your company. All right. Now, at 614 Startups, wait. Hold on, man. I'm all over the place today with my news section. Hang on, because I've been navigating away from things. All right. So at 614 Startups, we have a goal, and that's to scale up our YouTube channel. Initially, we were audio only as a podcast, but we've added video with the help of my man Ski, the super producer over here at the U, all right, giving us great video content. And we're uploading our episodes to YouTube every week, most recently with my guy, Matt Orr. And we are on the road to 1,000 subscribers. Now, here's a little, I'm showing you guys this page, and it's like March the 30th, right? Or March the 31st right now. We're at 29 subscribers. We want to grow to 1,000. And for all of you startup entrepreneurs out there, you probably know the feeling of starting somewhere and then your goal seeming so far off. You're going to be able to follow this journey with us. So if you're a YouTube watcher like a lot of people, go ahead and subscribe to the 614 Startups channel. You'll get the notifications that we have new content out, and you can stay on top of what we have going on in the video world. So join us on the road to 1,000. All right, now, finally, we always got to keep you with the heat when it comes to events. All right, we have two great events, and the first one I want to highlight. Now, we have an events page on our website. So if you're thinking about things, you want to learn, you want to network, etc., this is where you're going to find a lot of things going on that you might be interested in. So right here is the fundamentals of IP, intellectual property strategy. When to think about IP. Very, very important. Like me, immediately when I saw this, it's like, I'm a content creator. Am I protecting my intellectual property? Are there things I need to be thinking about? So definitely looking forward to this session. It's being presented by Renner Auto, Jumpstart, and ECDI. So these are experts in the space. Again, listen, I watch a lot of YouTube videos talk about content in YouTube, and you have people on there selling you courses to teach you about IP and teach you about marketing and teach you about branding. Listen, a lot of these companies that have the experience here in Ohio are putting out phenomenal content that you can actually get for free. So if you are thinking about IP, go to our website, register for this. This was shared with me by my guy, Ron Stubblefield over at Jumpstart, and he is leading Black founder outreach at Jumpstart. So just think about that. Ron sent this to me. He thought it was important enough for me to put it out on 614 Startups and share this information. So it's not that opportunities to learn aren't there. Sometimes they're just hard to find, but we're trying to make it easy for you to find and identify these opportunities on our website. All right, and I told you guys about this last week. You still have an opportunity to register for Startup Grind with my man Claudius Emba. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Claudius. And he's the CTO and co-founder of New. And here's a special offer from Startup Grind. Talk about collaboration. Startup Grind has partnered with Entrepreneurs Brew. Entrepreneurs Brew is a partner here at 614 Startups. And for everybody who registers and attends on April 12th, they will get a free bag of Entrepreneurs Brew coffee. I got tastings of some new coffees on Friday that I'm super excited about. So it's going to be some good stuff in there. We're going to make sure that you have the best quality coffee. It's going to be delivered to you fresh. So check out this event on April the 12th. And one thing that I didn't pull up And I'm not going to have, actually, let me see if I can find it in real time, which is an event that I just did a video about, and that's being presented by the the Urban Accelerator, where I am right now. And it's an event called Ignite, and it's Ignite Week. Now, Ignite Week, I don't know when you're watching this, but this is a limited time to really get on board with Ignite Week, because for us, it's next week, starting on April the 5th, 2021. But Ignite Week is an opportunity for Black and brown founders to gather and learn about all the resources of the U. The U is a dynamic not-for-profit focused on education and helping Black and brown businesses succeed, launch and scale, create jobs, and create wealth, right, at the end of the day for the people who are actually the founders. So Ignite Week, I'm very excited about. I happen to be one of the speakers during the week, and there is a dynamic group of dynamic entrepreneurs that are going to be participating. So you will be learning from actual people with actual experience, sharing their insights with you. You're going to walk away with a lot of practical and actionable things that you can implement in your business to see success. The cost is $50. And part of the proceeds will support Maroon's arts group. You can check them out online. They're going to be creating a pitch competition with these proceeds, part of the proceeds, for Black founders in that pitch event. Hopefully we'll get more information on and we can post to our website. So I got some homework to do. I got to get Ignite on the 614 Startups events page, and then I got to get with Maroon's arts group so we can get that pitch competition on the page. But now you are up to date. Big, exciting things happening in Columbus, Ohio. And the only place you can keep track of all that in one spot is 614 Startups. Next up is my guest, Brad Hoewler of Pay Theory. 614 Startups Nation, welcome to another episode of the 614 Startups podcast. My name is Elio Harmon, and I'm so excited. We are expanding the map here at 614 Startups. You know, we get the coverage here in Columbus, Ohio, but today we're taking a road trip down to Cincinnati. And I hear from Brad, my guest today, that it's windy and chilly just like it is in Columbus, Ohio. But we're about to heat this thing up. I'd like to welcome my guest today, Brad Hoewler of Pay Theory. Brad, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Elio. It's great to be here. Thanks for having, hey, I'm honored to be the first guest from Cincinnati. That's fantastic.
Well, not the first, because people beat me up, but we don't get down to Cincinnati that often. I've had a couple people from Cincinnati. I love what you guys are doing down in Cincinnati. I was kind of jealous when I heard that you guys were getting an innovation district before we were. And so I know Cincinnati is a city abuzz with startup activity, your company being one of them. But before we get into Pay Theory, we got to talk about the background. So for folks who don't know you, a little bit about your personal background and your professional background.
So I'm born and raised in Cincinnati. I've tried to get out many times, but they keep pulling me back in, so to speak. Come from an entrepreneurial family, went to the University of Cincinnati. And once I got out of that, I got into, some people would say that maybe it was a misstep, but I got into public accounting. So I'm a recovering CPA. But entrepreneurial life was sort of part of my family, and eventually it led me to the internet and the creation of a company called Skipjack with a great team and some great co-founders there. And Skipjack was one of the first internet payment gateways in the market. And as I mentioned, along with a lot of great people, we were lucky enough to build Skipjack. Ultimately, we exited and to Fifth Third Bank, and what became WorldPay and was spun out from Fifth Third Bank. And after I left and sat a little time on the sidelines, getting away from a non-compete, spent a little time in the investment world, and then eventually got the desire to build something again, and got back into the payment side of things. And now here I am, working on another startup at Pay Theory.
Okay. Do you find a lot of accountants, right, going into the world of startups, or are you kind of an anomaly? Or, should we be looking to accounting programs for the next great startup founders? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, wow. What I would say is that being in public accounting, and I specifically, some of this is family background, but I specifically went into, I was with one of the big six back in the day, but I specifically went into their middle market practice in order to see more companies, the way that, they tackled problems within their industries, how they dealt with financial issues. And so that was, honestly, it was a great background from which to work with. But to all of my friends who are CPAs, to anybody thinking about that lifestyle, I mean, hey, look, it's just not my personality. So I quickly found out that it just wasn't right for me. But yeah, no, I mean, I think that whether or not we go and look for people there or not, I think that there are some diametrically opposed concepts, between conservative financial, record keeping and, the entrepreneurial life. But if you can make that transition, you've got a fantastic foundation from which to do it.
All right. So what I'm hearing from you is, hey, that's truly the land of CFOs running the company, right? So yeah, you need to have kind of that unique balance of accounting thinking, making sure everything balances, and kind of the books are right versus kind of that visionary pushing for growth kind of attitude that you need sitting in the CEO chair. So that's wonderful. One of the reasons I was very excited to have you on is because of your background. A lot of the folks who I have on, this is their first rodeo.
Mm-hmm.
I like the fact that you had that 12 years of experience building your first company. Let's talk about
Absolutely.
that experience. And people think of the startup world as, hey, it's 3 years to $1 billion valuation, 5 years to $1 billion valuation, or even to an exit. What did you learn in those 12 years of building your company before you finally were able to spin out and have an exit?
Yeah, that is a fantastic question. There's so many things that I learned through that process. Let me see. Excuse me. I think that the number one thing that I learned through that process was finding the right team. And we had a great foundation. We had a great starting team, but as the company evolved, we had some stumbles here and there, finding the right people to continue to build the company with and take it forward. And eventually, we found that right mix and the right people. And it doesn't, that it's a grind. We were very lucky to have investors who believed in us, and we had a lot of early success, some of which was, we for instance, we signed the largest payment processor in the world at that time up as almost our second customer, right? And so there was always this promise, and we hustled and we worked and we ground our way through trying to realize the full potential of those relationships. And it doesn't always happen as quickly as you want it to. I think that it's really important to build a great team, learn from your mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. They're going to happen. You hope they're not catastrophic, and you learn from them, right? So it's really important to, take that learning in and figure out how to keep going. We came really close early on during the first .com bubble to making, like Mark Cuban money back in the day. And we had a deal that fell through, and it was kind of a crushing blow to a lot of team members. But everybody, kind of hunkered down and went back to work, and we kept it going. And, eventually we found a level of success that allowed us to have an exit. And I think that, it's a process. It is, and each step of the way requires different skill sets. And I think that it's really important for young entrepreneurs, new entrepreneurs, to research what you're doing. It's obviously great if you have a great background within the specific space that you're going after, but find other people who, who are their mentors, your investors, who are going to help you fill the gaps that you have. But I think one of the key things is, really working hard to understand where your gaps are, right? Like knowing what you're good at, what you're not good at, finding the people who are good at those things that you are not, and or amplify what you're able to do, by yourself. And, I think that's probably the biggest thing that I've learned along the way.
Yeah. Now, the euphoria of starting in year 1, 2, and 3 is probably pretty high.
Mm-hmm.
But like most things, like starting out a new diet or a new workout program or starting a family, the euphoria quickly wears off and you have to deal with the reality. And so before we go any further, I'll talk about that euphoria to kind of that squiggly line to success. But I want to start by thanking our supporter. So this is a brand new supporter, Dickinson Wright. All right. And they're a law firm here locally that we work with around 500 attorneys working from 19 offices across the US and Canada. They handle all types of business transactional law, including advising privately held and venture-backed companies in capital raising, mergers and acquisitions, and transitions involving technology, software, data, and e-commerce. Partner Alex Brown, personal friend of mine now, serves as outside general counsel to startup companies ranging from business entity selection and formation, protection and commercialization of technology assets, conducting business online, and data security issues. For more information, visit dickinsonwright.com. All right. So you have this big euphoric experience. You call Dickinson Wright, you get the company registered, and then you get into the heart of building a business. Mm-hmm. How much of that, at what point it goes from I'm in love with the idea, I'm euphoric about starting this, and it just turns into a game of persistence, right? How much of success in the startup world is, it's one part great idea, one part great team, but how much of it is it just grit and just staying the course, did you find when you were building your company?
Yeah, I think it's equal parts those things and some luck too. I mean, I don't know that we can, obviously the harder we work, the luckier we hope to make our efforts. But I can tell you that along the way, we've tried some things that were ahead of their time, and it was, in hindsight, they were fantastic ideas, but it was the wrong time to try them. And I think that, well, for me at least, I really enjoy the grind a little bit more. Like I get really anxious, that the euphoria that you're talking about, like coming up with a great idea, starting to pull a team together and then creating an MVP. I found this with my own kids. So I've got 3 boys who are all out of the house at this point in time. But it was kind of like with them, like I always wanted them, everybody loves the baby phase, if you will. I was ready for them to be able to talk with me and have a conversation and have, personalities beyond the super awesome, giggles and coos and so forth. But, I think I find personally the same thing with business. And that is like when we finally have something to sell, you know what I mean? Like, expressing the vision and getting those initial investors to come on board, finding the teammates to come on board. And, that's incredibly important. But I really prefer that time when, there's something you finally got and you're now out there convincing the rest of the world and customers that this is really, a fantastic opportunity. And, you really start to see the culmination of that vision that you have, that what you're trying to accomplish. You're starting to see that actually in action. And that's the part where I really start to get excited. Yes. And then from there, it is a grind. It's a roller coaster. there are ups and downs. You know, we've had, in our short lifespan, we have had, you know, deals that we've tried to get done that didn't work out. We've had ups and downs with rolling, you know, some services out in the beginning, you know, and then we've had weeks where everything just seems to kind of fall together, and you know, you get a bunch of great news and everything's charging along, and then I think my personal experience is always, you know, like Friday at about 3:30 in the afternoon, something falls apart. So, you know, it's like, well, everybody's looking forward to like unwinding for, you know, a little bit on the weekend. And of course, that's when everybody seems to have problems. You get to jump back in and fix something.
And so for you first time founders out there, here's what I'm experiencing. It took me like 3 years to learn this lesson. You're never as smart as you think you are. And you're never as dumb as you feel sometimes, right? And
It's true.
It's like, I feel like this company building 614 startups is that it's that you get to glance right over the cliff, and then the startup gods will give you just enough to keep pulling you along, right? So I'm trying to make sure I don't get too high or too low as I go through these processes, because I know this is a long haul thing. All right, now let's talk about pay theory, because when I was reading the story of pay theory, it got me really excited about the need that you're looking to serve. So what is the idea behind pay theory, and what's the problem that you guys are looking to solve?
Yeah, so what we're trying to do is really create the payment platform, you know, financial services around the moment of payment to solve issues for families. And so we are a purpose-built payment platform for companies that service families, and ultimately the SaaS providers that are connecting families and what we call service providers. So we do this in the family tech space. So that is made up of things like education, childcare, after school activities, and a little bit of healthcare. And what we really are focused on doing is providing access. And so we offer you know, an inclusive payment solution for all families. And you know, one of the underlying problems that we've seen. So you know, my background, as I've mentioned, is in payments. My co-founder, Eric Folkert's background is in EdTech. And so, you know, our combined experience, and then, you know, the rest of the founding team as well, is, you know, because some of our teammates, you know, have, you know, frankly, they have been unbanked at times. They have, you know, living paycheck to paycheck at various times. And so what we really looked at was, you have a number of organizations that are super mission driven, right? Schools are there to educate our kids. Childcare, you know, obviously there to provide a really healthy and safe and hopefully supportive atmosphere for our children. And these are mission driven organizations. They're not great at finance. They're not great at tech typically. And then you have families, and, you know, maybe, I don't know if everyone's aware of this or not, but, you know, especially in public schools, up to 30% of families in public schools are or underbanked. You know, you've got 40% of Americans living paycheck to paycheck. And yet at the same time, you have service providers who, for instance, for very good reasons, would love to go cashless. So schools would love to go cashless because handling cash is a gigantic burden. You can imagine, you know, you've got many kids bringing cash in, the teachers collecting that, you know, filling out paper forms, putting it in special envelopes, taking it to the office. Then somebody in the office is, you know, counting that cash, making sure it's all there, filling out deposit slips. And this is happening, you know, in school after school within a district. So big, you know, burden there for the school. But, you know, so schools would love to go cashless. Like, let's just move everything online. But the increasing digitalization of our lives, and this is where we see all the interaction going between families and schools. You know, Elio, do you have children?
Yes, I have a 4-year-old.
Okay, so you're about to get to this place where you're going to have like 5 apps on your phone, and, you know, 3 different websites that you're going to have to go to deal with the various you know, online learning, you know, student engagement, family engagement platforms at the schools that your children are attending. And this is so what's happening though is you're almost getting this like systematic, inaccessibility for families. Because if you are underbanked and you have to go online to make a payment, you suddenly are unable to do that. And if at the same time the school doesn't want to go cash or would like to go cashless, or for instance, now during COVID, right, where you're not actually in school, how do you participate? How do you make sure that your child has access? And so what we have done is we've created a payment platform that takes, the typical online experience of paying with a credit or debit card or paying with your checking account, your ACH information. And we've added digital cash acceptance to that. And so, quickly, the way that would work is, if you were a family and you wanted to or needed to use cash to pay for the school fee, let's say it's a field trip, for instance, you would go online, you would go to the checkout, so let's say you're filling out a permission slip, you fill that out. At the end, you say, all right, no, I'm not going to pay with credit. I'm not going to pay with ACH. I'm going to pay with cash. So then you provide us a little bit of information, either your email address, a phone number, or, and some of this depends on how the school implements it or their tech platform implements it. But we're going to send you a barcode, and you can take that barcode to one of roughly 50,000 retail locations around the country. Roughly within a mile of 90% of the U.S. population with the retail network that we work with. And they're going to scan that barcode. You're going to pay the $20, let's say it is, for the field trip to the art museum. And then your child gets to participate. You got to pay the way that you needed to pay. The school was able to go cashless but still take care of families who need to use cash. And so what we've done then is create an inclusive, open platform for all the parties that are involved in this process.
I think that's amazing. I think, there are the unseen in our society, right? We talk about growth, and especially in the startup world, we can be focused on a very, very kind of tight-knit community of people who only understand the problems that they're experiencing, right? So for me, it would never occur to me to pay anything with cash because I'm banked, right? It's just what I do. I give folks my card number, they bill it every month, and we'll balance the credit card or bank statement when it comes.
Correct. Yes.
So we understand the value proposition for a family who might be unbanked and need to use cash, and the school who doesn't want to handle cash, and you're solving that problem for them. But there's a third party here, it's the retailer. So what's in it for the retailer when I take my cash to them to be part of this transaction?
Yeah, so that part of the system is actually handled through our money transmission partners. I won't get into money transmission and all the things that are the regulatory hurdles and so forth that are there. So that's why we've partnered with the group there. And so what typically the retail partner is, they have a couple of benefits. One, increased foot traffic. The second is that there is some financial incentive for them. So the fees that underlie those transactions, a portion of that goes back to the retailer. One of the things that we are working on right now, and shout out to any potential partners who would be interested in working with us on this, is that we are looking for ways to subsidize those costs for the cash transactions. This is not an area of our business where we want to make money off of transactions from an underbanked population. So there are some interesting ways that we're looking to attack that problem, whether it be, for instance, offering coupons or advertising on the bottom of the barcodes that we provide. So that could be an incentive for a retailer, to offer a coupon to get the family to come into their location and pay in that location, and hopefully generate some foot traffic and have the family buy their other necessities there at their location. And I didn't get into the types of businesses, retailers where these transactions are accepted are typically grocery stores, convenience stores, drug stores, some gas outlets as well. So Family Dollar, those types of locations. So these are locations where families are already going to take care of their necessities. The other, so that's really something that we're working on doing, finding the right partners to help us offset some of those costs, so that we don't have to pass those on to institutions who are trying to provide a great benefit to families.
Yeah, and that's why I really love what you guys are doing, because there is a cost to poverty. You would imagine that poverty is difficult enough, but the fact that you're poor, your transactional costs go up, because there's a fee tacked to using cash, or a fee for convenience. For example, I see that most prominently in people paying other types of bills. Like if you go to a particular retailer and you want to pay an electric bill and you're using cash, or if you want to cash a check, there's a check cashing fee. There's a cost to poverty in this country.
Absolutely.
So the question now becomes, as you try to navigate that, and I hear you navigating that, right, that there is this cost, what's the business model of pay theory, if you can get into that, while navigating this very, very kind of societal problem that we all need to think about? But how are you thinking about it beyond what you're doing with the retailers to mitigate some of these costs?
Yeah, so the way that we primarily make money are on transaction fees, but most of those are coming in with credit card and ACH payments. So those are coming from families who are used to either paying those fees, or the school is already paying for those types of services. And so that is the revenue model, is a per transaction revenue model. We have plans to expand our financial offerings as well, which we think are pretty exciting. And so that would bring in some new additional revenue streams. So the next thing that we're working on is sort of a buy now, pay later version or type service. We're calling it access now, pay later. And that's potentially taking on a number of forms, for the space. But this is an underserved space in that. So, buy now, pay later services, everyone's getting used to seeing those in retail. You're gonna buy a Peloton bike or something like that. Everybody, or you're buying a TV, something like that. Everybody's getting used to seeing Affirm or Afterpay on checkout pages. And so that tends to be really retail, asset heavy. No one's doing that to provide access, though, to families. And one of the things that we see is that, especially in public schools, it's not uncommon for public schools only to collect about 70% of the fees that they issue to families. And that has repercussions, across the board. That has implications to the amount of services that the organization can offer. Typically, if you have a child and they're coming to a graduation, whether it's going from, say, grade school to middle school to high school, or graduate from high school, if you have outstanding fees, typically you're not going to be allowed to graduate with everyone else. And so, there are many, different ramifications to that process. So what we're hopeful that we can do is combine the cash payments, start to work with some other partners and schools to offer payment plans, basically to help schools collect more money, to allow families to divide those must pay items that they're facing every day into smaller chunks that they're are more easily digestible, financially speaking. And then eventually what we want to do is take a lot of that data and bring it all together. Now we would have all this data that no one else has access to, that's not being reported to credit bureaus or anything like that, and hopefully move families along that credit spectrum, and then offer credit debit products that would allow families to, well, number one, get rewarded for making those everyday payments. This is something that's not really happening, right? There's no one's really doing that for families right now. And then, helping some families move along the credit spectrum. So I'm getting into kind of like future state here, which, my partners are going to get mad at me for doing, but that's okay. I'm excited about it. I think we're going to really be able to do some really cool things for everyone.
But that's the exciting thing about a startup going in and solving a real problem. So for example, you brought up that some people due to fees can't graduate on time, right? Because they haven't paid all the fees. And, you know, because in the media, you don't hear nuanced conversations about the cost of these things or the pain really felt
Right.
by parents or students. Traditionally, the thing was to just cut a program. So the fact that we can't collect that 30% for whatever reason either means we're not
Right.
doing trips, right? So that kind of educational experience goes away, or we're cutting things like art, right? So art was kind of the first thing that went, and then, or maybe
Mm-hmm.
the second thing with, along with music. And now they're touching the American sacred cows of sports, right?
Right.
And so we understand that these things have consequences. The fact that these schools cannot collect enough, or they don't have enough disposable revenue, quote unquote disposable, to spend on some of these very essential things that we all enjoyed when we were going through school, and it's at risk for a lot of students who could use those programs the most. I like the fact that you guys are also thinking about other products to roll out, because these issues around payment and unbanked, you know, it's all encompassing. It's affecting that student's entire life, that parent's entire life. And, you know, for folks like myself, this is kind of my second year participating in pre-tax savings in order to pay
Mm-hmm.
for dependent care expenses, right? So looking into
Right.
direct deposits pre-tax, that's another place that, again, poverty or access to these kinds of tools to reduce taxes is also a tax on those who don't have access. So a lot of interesting
Absolutely.
ways you can help families by bringing them into this more of a banked world with a product like Pay Theory.
Yeah, absolutely. Elio, can I jump in there? Because I think you make a great point about the externalization. So as these programs are getting cut, what's happening is, like, no one wants these, no one wants art, no one wants music to be cut. No, you'd say the sacred cow of sports, right? So what happens is those costs get externalized to the family, and this only exacerbates the problem, because now you're pushing off, in some programs in Ohio for football, the one you mentioned, it can be $1,000, right? I mean, this is not an inexpensive, fee. And so what you're doing is you're just creating more and more barriers for people who can't afford those barriers. And, you were talking about, we're talking about kids now as well, right? I mean, it's for us, for our families, but these are dreams, right? This is dreams in action that, now there's a barrier in front of that. And, look, that's an extreme example of a really high fee, but even at the beginning of a school year, there tend to be a number of fees. We see like lab fees, registration fees, different things like that. All of those adding up, if you are, living paycheck to paycheck, like, they might not be individually that large. It could be, but if let's say it's 4 or 5 $40 to $50 charges, now suddenly, that's something that I, along with all the other things that I've got to take care of, whether it's rent and, putting food on the table, those things add up.
All right, now we're going to take a quick break because I want to talk about users, right? If you call them users in your world, or customers, or students, or parents, right? But we're thinking about how do we grow here at 614 Startups. And I'm a solo founder, right? I've been able to bring on some people to help me with some of that, right? Like Ski, the super producer here at the U, making me look really good on camera right now, but also our partners over at Studio MFP, undertaking all the marketing that you have to do as a founder, even with a team, can be so overwhelming. So naturally, we turn to our sponsor, Studio MFP, for help in order for us to take our brand and marketing to the next level. Of course, I'm worried about cost, how much time it would take, and even the level of commitment I needed to take on. And since I'm also running everything here at 614 Startups, Studio MFP has really helped by stepping in and taking care of a lot of our marketing needs. So check them out for a free consultation at studiomfp.com and start growing your business today. All right, let's talk about users. Getting users, right? You've been able to scale to retailers, 50,000 locations across the country within 90% of a lot of your customer base, or most of the US population. Let's talk about how schools find out about Pay Theory, parents find out about Pay Theory, and how you've been able to successfully get so many retailers on board.
Yeah, so that's about 4 questions in one. So
That's what we do here, is rapid fire.
Yeah, let me break that down a little bit. So when we have been designing the payment platform, we think about three groups of people that we need to solve problems for, right? And we've talked about families, we've talked about schools and other organizations that take care of families and take care of children. But there's a third and very important, and I've kind of alluded to this group, that is really the way that we reach those other two groups with this particular payment acceptance product. And that is this growing group of SaaS platforms. So those are EdTech platforms, platforms that are helping daycares, for instance, to run their facilities. And so this is where we're seeing, as I mentioned, more and more of that interaction between families and schools and teachers is not happening, in person necessarily when it comes to sort of the administrative or, now, especially when everyone's remote during COVID, like these things are moving to apps, they're moving online. This could be messaging between schools and families. This could be forms that need to be filled out. This could be other engagement platforms. And so what's really interesting about our model is that we know that the best way to help the other two groups out is to get those SaaS platforms to integrate our services into their platform so that they're ready to go. The technical burden has been completely taken off of the school's shoulders at that point in time. Schools also are not historically an easy group to sell into. So this actually helps us. We can almost leverage the networks that these SaaS platforms already have. So for instance, our first group of SaaS partners have over 1,000 school districts that they provide services to. So we immediately have access to, over 1,000 school districts. And that gets us access in those school districts. It's roughly about 3.5 million students and about 2.5 million families that are represented in those districts. We do a couple of other things that, adding cash to that, solving specific problems of those platforms customers, right? So the purpose-built side of our business is really important to them. So that makes their services that much more valuable to a school, to a daycare center. And then that allows us basically to solve those other problems that we've talked about for families and for schools. So that's how we get those groups. The money the cash and the retailer side, that is really, and I think that this is a great time for startups, because I got to tell you, when back in the Skipjack days and we're talking 97, the early 2000s, we had to build everything, it was all new. We had our own data centers, now AWS, we're operating in a completely serverless, system architecture. My guys are doing some crazy things that just weren't possible back in the day. And so that's actually, some really interesting things. So now the way that we look at some of our infrastructure is that we will leverage other people's existing infrastructure. And you see this throughout FinTech. And there are actually a lot of great local companies that are doing this. One of our big partners is another Cincinnati startup in the payment space, a company called Finix. And so what we do is we leverage those platforms. Okay, that allows us to prove product market fit, and that's the same thing that we're doing. We ride on a group called Vanilla Direct, their Rails, and that allows us to basically prove product market fit. And then when we start to build volume, we prove out that there's demand for our services. Then that increased volume allows us to get some better economics out of those partners, and or allows us to take some of the cost out. We at some point in the future we can start taking more and more of those responsibilities on ourselves. Will we ever become money transmitters? Probably not. That's a whole different world. There's a whole podcast to be done just on that. But.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, once you start touching people's money, people have questions, right? There are more questions when you actually are the recipient of the cash rather than facilitating the transaction and kind of being hands-off with that portion of it. So Absolutely. What's next for Pay Theory? What's on your radar for the rest of 2021?
Yeah, 2021 for us is, we're out fundraising right now. We're looking to build the team, and really this year is focused on continue to build out the product offering, but it's really one of proving out our concept. And so it is all about partner acquisition on the SaaS side, getting schools up and running on the platform. We're going to have a really big push here, obviously going into the upcoming school year, and my sincere hope is that we will, at the end of this year, be able to show that we're really helping families. Like this is in schools and daycare facilities, but we're squarely focused on making sure that our products are serving their intended purpose. And so, I think that we've got the fantastic foundational team here to make that happen. And I'm really excited. I'm really excited about what we have coming up. It's going to be a lot of hard work, but we talked about the grind earlier. This is really the fun part, where you start to see it happen. And, it's like, going back to our sports reference, it's like, hey, we've been preseason practice for this whole time, right? And now it's time to get out on the field and play a real game.
Yeah, but you have the wind behind you. You have the experience of Skipjack. You're now kind of the captain. You've been in the playoffs, and you could bring the rest of the team along with you, right? When people are going through kind of the, hey, what are we doing here? Are we on the right track? Is this really what we need to be building? That experience is going to serve you well, I am sure. All right, now we're going to say our final thing. Oh, go ahead, Brad. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I hope I'm not the aging quarterback who's got a bum knee.
Like Tom Brady.
Well, I'm not going to compare myself to Tom Brady. I mean, come on. That's the GOAT.
I know it's the GOAT, right? But he's the example, right? We all have hope, right? Tom Brady is our hope, right? That we could do this into, beyond when we're supposed to stop, right? Tom Brady is going to keep doing it, and I'm going to lean on him for inspiration as long as I can, all right? So we know you're a vet.
I will aspire to reach those lofty goals.
And you're going to be cool as a cucumber doing it, I'm sure. All right, so we're going to say our final thank you here to AWH. Like Brad was saying, back in the day, you had to build it all. Now there are a lot of things that can help you build it, like AWS and some other platforms to scale up your company without investing loads in infrastructure. And there's a company here locally that can help you do that. When companies large and small need to solve technological challenges, they turn to AWH. AWH has the experience and expertise to help your company create innovative and disruptive products for the web, mobile, and IoT. Leveraging a deep understanding of machine learning, artificial intelligence, and blockchain, combined with the creativity that comes from their entrepreneurial DNA, AWH gives their clients the competitive advantage. Visit awh.net today and tell them about your project. All right, now, Brad, I wrap up every podcast with a takeaway, and there's so many takeaways here because this has been a fascinating conversation. But here's the thing I took away is, as you were telling me your story about your product, I immediately started to think that you were going to go to the customer and to the schools to sell. A little asymmetric warfare here, because you threw me the curve by going to the providers who are already inside of the schools, because school purchasing, I know large company RFPs are hard, but imagine like let me not call it bureaucracy. I love my educators. I love everybody out there teaching, but I know they don't make it easy for people to implement innovative solutions. Let's just put it that way. And the fact that you're going the route of people who already are in those schools, they already probably understand the problems that you're seeing. They're hearing it from administrators, and you can partner with them and add more value to their feature set. I think it's an incredible way to go to your market, get scale quickly, and prove out your concept. So interesting stuff there at Pay Theory. All right, guys, that's a wrap. You can find this and all other episodes on our website, 614startups.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, and all your favorite podcasting platforms. Don't forget to subscribe and write a review. If you would like updates sent to your inbox, you can sign up for our weekly newsletter on the website. to engage in the 614 Startups community, follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at 614 Startups on all platforms to join the conversation. For sponsorship opportunities and collaborations, email us at info@614startups.com. Brad, do you have anything else you want to leave the people with today?
Oh, wow. Well, hey, if you, a school or that needs some love, please send them our way. We're here to help. And I just want to say thank you so much for having me on the show. It's been fantastic.
Yeah, great, man. And we'll keep this conversation going because from a societal standpoint, the work that you're doing is very important. Here at 614 Startups, we're not just heads down looking at the startup world. We want to look with a wider lens about what's happening in our community. So we can keep that conversation going on. All right. Thank you for joining us on another episode. Peace.